and lead into the how do I segment. Because this is a great transition.
So you mentioned the phrase you just said, be the main character in your story. And you said that's really what you focus on, teaching. Well, I presume, it can apply to anybody, but your focus is fathers and sons, which that's why we call this where fatherhood meets fandom. It's not just for dads, but we're dads. We're going to speak from our perspective and what we're dealing with. And just that phrase, be the main character in my own story. I mean, I realized I've never felt like I was growing up. And that was my rebellion. That's where I exploded out of it. That's where I did a lot of bad things to a lot of people. So without all my long-windedness, what does it mean to be the main character? I guess the segment, let me officially, how do I be the main character in my own story?
Yes. Great question. And a lot of dads see it like, oh, I want my kid to be the main character in their story, and it starts with us as dads being able to model that. The difference between, let me ask, I'm going to put it back on you guys. Main characters in a let's use Star Wars, the original trilogy. Who would you say, if there are 2 to 3 main characters, how would you describe, who would you describe as the main characters in the movie?
Definitely Luke and Leia would be the top 2, and probably Han would be number 3.
I would go
Vader,
Luke and Vader, and for me, I mean, that's what resonates is the father son there, and then the Yoda, the one that was for me, he was just trying to get Luke through his anger. So that's how I describe it: is the 3 main characters were Vader, Yoda, and Luke.
Amazing. So yes, both Luke and Vader have components of being the main character. What are characters in the movie where you're like, yeah, definitely role character? No question.
Han Solo, definitely. I mean, he was a role character. What do you think, Joe?
So what do you mean by role character, I guess, is what I'm struggling with.
Okay, I'll define it like this. And this is why I'm bringing it back. The main characters get into difficult situations and they find a way out. They find a way to resolve the problem. Specifically Luke, like you think about him getting thrown down in the Rain Corps pit. Not like nobody else is saving him. He's the one that's pulling himself out. He's got to fight Vader. Even if he gets jacked up and his arm cut off, he still just takes the hit. Nobody's coming to save him. Like, he's the one that's making the decision of where he's going and when. Even like Han Solo in The Empire Strikes Back, he's making main character decisions. He's making decisions of when and where he's going to go. Chewbacca is a role character. He just happens to go everywhere that Han goes. He's not making major decisions, tactical decisions with his life.
Okay. Obi-Wan Kenobi until the sacrifice. He was a role character. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
Or the droids. They're just along for the ride for the most part, or following orders.
Yes. And he's, C-3PO constantly, oh, please, like everything's screwed. Like, please save me. Somebody's got to do something. Nobody is, he's always in the worst possible situation. It has to have, whether it's R2 or Han, somebody's got to save him. Otherwise he's screwed. So that is, I mean, and if you laugh, like you see those people in society that have to be saved. They need something good to happen for them instead of having it happen for themselves. So I look at, if someone is able to be a main character in their own story, they're making they can make decisions that other people don't like, that other people don't agree with, but they make it from the space of, I'm going to make a decision because it's what I believe is best for my growth, for my development, for my story to be interesting. And we get one chance in life. Like, why not write a story that's incredible and riveting and is someone that you want your kids to look up to and say, when we're facing an emotion, whether it's fear, anger, or joy, we decide to move the ball down the field and not stand on the sidelines.
Okay, so a main character is someone who is going to grow and adapt and make things happen to achieve accomplishments. Yes. Not to say they won't ever have setbacks, because they do, but that's all part of the growth. They overcome those setbacks to get done what needs to be done. Okay.
Right. I mean, if you want to oversimplify it, the main character is the one who has the story arc, right? The challenge, the holdback, the life-threatening thing, the crippling humanness that makes them a bad person that then they overcome and then become the hero at the end, right? I mean, more or less, the victor, however you want to say it.
So then being the hero or the main character in our own story is all about making sure that we are continually improving and getting things done, which would be having goals to accomplish instead of just going through the motions.
Yes. And most people don't do it. Most people stay on the sidelines and they're fine with the predictable. I could go to work, I get my paycheck, I go to the bar afterwards. I do the same things. I maybe like jump on and watch TV. And now we're getting into, you may not even be a role character. You're just watching somebody else play the game, right? So and not that I watch football too. I enjoy those things, but like, what's the balance? Like, how much of my life am I focusing on myself and my development or my kids' development versus the emotions and consumption that could come with watching somebody else?
You know, I remember the 90s commercial where the dad busts into the room and he's holding the kid's weed. He's like, well, I found this, blah, blah, blah. And the line is, I got it from you, Dad. You know, and I never wanted to be the dad that when I turn around and they've raged out. And this was not necessarily the case with my kid tonight. I could see a difference. But, you know, never wanted to do the things I did, was raged out, loud, just emotionally, spiritually, physically broke things and just trash them. And I never wanted to be, why are you doing this? Because I learned it from you, Dad. So I can see where they've learned stuff. But man, making that connection without having seen it. Thomas, let me throw this at you. It's along those lines.
Yeah.
Of our fathers raise us influenced by the way they were raised, right? With the connections they had with their dad or didn't have with their fathers and mothers. And it both plays in, you know, father becomes a father based on the both or the people that influenced them. And same here. And I've almost called it a curse between my wife and I's family of just choices our parents made in different realms. We have broken pattern, maybe is a better word. We've broken that pattern. Breaking the pattern is one thing, man. How do you jump from breaking the pattern to building a new healthy pattern along the lines of teaching them to be the main character in their own story?
So you're saying if a dad is coming from an environment that he felt was unhealthy.
So I'll just give you mine. My dad was very passive.
Please.
Not passive aggressive. He was just passive. And to the point of where I was like, we would talk about movies and stuff, but never about real life things. And to the point that one day when I was 18, 19, 20, I don't remember, my mom and I got into a verbal fight about things, and he just laid on the couch. And he didn't get involved. He didn't say anything. He didn't interject. He just laid there. And so while we have a little bit of a connection now, and we can talk about some things now, lots of years were missed. So I at the risk of hurting his feelings, and that's not the intent, because I don't even think he listens, but if he were, no harm intended, but I don't feel like I learned how to be a strong, connected father from him. So I've been trying to build connections with my kids the best I can while also supporting the family and pushing school forward and a lot of other things. And there's times that you have to make the decision of, no, I'm your father and you're going to do this. And I'm just winging it, man. So do you have some tips or guidelines? So from winging it to, okay, I broke the bad pattern. Somebody could, not for me, but I came from an abusive father or blah, blah, blah. How do you build the new pattern?
Yes. Okay. So without getting too far into the weeds, like I have what's called the Forge, the Leadership Forge. And anybody that's listening, you can go to dadswholead.com. There's a free leadership quiz, and then afterwards you'll get a copy of this. But there's 5 levels on the Leadership Forge. The first one I'll just go through them and then kind of hit on briefly on what you talked about. Faith in our ability to govern ourselves, faith in our ability that our kids are going to have what it takes to be successful in life. And for me, faith that a higher power has called me to be a dad. I'm not a dad on accident. The second level is ownership, owning our results as a leader, as the leader of your home. A lot of dads don't identify as the leader of their home. Our society is leaned now, especially with sitcoms, towards identifying the mom as more of the leader. And not a leader like you're going to do what I say, but leader like, okay, if something doesn't go right, it's on me. What can I do better? Then we get into respect, mutual respect within our kids, between our kids, which is kind of what you talked about. Like, how do you have a positive interaction when your son has done something not ideal that maybe didn't serve him? How can you still have a positive interaction with him that's not, he's just going to shut you down as soon as you start talking?
Yeah.
Level 4.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll go through all five,
okay.
And then you can jump back in and say, hey, let's talk about this. Level 4 is groundbreaking adventure. So this is my favorite one. When you get to that point where you're having good interactions, like respect level is, can you have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with your kid and things go well? If you can do that, then have an adventure, go fishing with them, go do, train martial arts. Maybe you play a board game, something where you're engaged alongside with your kids. That changes a lot, because when you can get outside and do things with your kids, one, if you're riding a bike or climbing on a rock wall, they're not going to be on their phone. So now that they're engaging with you as a dad on a physical level, side by side, which is how fathers and sons used to connect for hundreds and thousands of generations. Go out with your dad into the sticks and come back with some meat. I mean, it sounds barbaric, but that's how we operated for most of the human species. It's how we connected with our kids. And at the very top of the pyramid is expectation. So for me as a dad, I know with my son, who's very naturally defiant against authority, that's just the way that he's hardwired. He wants to do his own way. I look at this every day, like, okay, well, where am I at these different levels? Have I had an adventure with him? Have I had an interaction of mutual respect with Charles? If I am, then I probably am in a position to have some type of expectation. Still, he's probably not going to like it, but it's going to land a lot better than if I'm just jumping straight to, I'm your dad, this is my title, you're going to do what I say. He's going to see me like a police officer. Mm-hmm. He's going to say, like, oh, I know that cop sits on this corner, and I'm going to just turn, or I'm going to talk to the cop and say, yeah, I know I wasn't supposed to, whatever. And then like, whatever. I know I said that, but I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. I was just trying to get out of the conversation in the ticket, so I don't want to have a relationship where I'm the police officer.
Random Kid says you become a father when your kid is born, but you have to earn the title of dad.
Yeah.
I get it. And I just wanted to throw up dadswholead.com. Go in there and we'll take that quiz myself. That was some good, powerful stuff. And of course, Dad Who Leads podcast.